Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. Our featured guest tonight returns to the show to explain the City of Vancouver's inhumane cycle of decamping unhoused people, then decamping them again when they set up a new encampment somewhere else, as this whole cycle has been on repeat seemingly for years. Why does this keep happening? Here to explain is Vancouver City Councillor representing OneCity Vancouver. She is Christine Boyle, and this conversation is supported by Shelter Point Single Malt Whiskey, distinctly Vancouver Island, uniquely Shelter Point. So Christine, this month we saw Oppenheimer Park basically be decamped in a cold streak in the winter. Last year we saw Hastings Street be decamped, and there just seems to be this game of displacing unhoused people without any permanent solutions. They decamp them one place and then they encamp somewhere else and then they decamp them from there. So why does this keep happening?
The first thing to say is that it keeps happening because there aren't enough homes. There aren't enough homes across the whole spectrum, but especially for low-income people. So people are living in tents and on the street because they don't have a safe, stable place to call home.
So then why is the city displacing them if there's nowhere for them to go?
Yeah, it's a great question. We know that people have nowhere else to go, and we keep shuffling them around. And one of the things we hear so clearly from advocates is that even though most of us think that understand that an encampment is not an ideal living situation, it's still safer for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons than being shuffled into more secluded and isolated spaces. In an encampment, there's still some community and people checking in with one another, and ability for health supports and social supports to make those connections that help move people into housing or into recovery or the services and supports that they need. So encampments are not a long-term solution. And also, if we keep just shuffling people around, we're making the situation worse and potentially fatal.
So you sit on city council. There didn't seem to be any indication to the public that this was going to happen. It wasn't explained why it's happening in this cold snap of the winter. I mean, we had sub-zero temperatures. Yeah. Why wasn't there any proactive communication even to the public as to the reasoning behind this latest encampment in Oppenheimer Park?
So it's true. I got no advance notice that this was happening. I heard about it when my phone started blowing up with messages from community leaders and housing advocates saying, WTF is happening here, and what are we going to do about it? I think the question that should be put to the mayor and the ABC majority again and again is, what's the plan? We've been in office a year and a bit, and as you outlined, there have been 2 major decampments, and people just keep coming back because they have nowhere to go. So what is Mayor Sim, what is ABC putting on the table that brings us out of this cycle?
So I just want to be clear. You're saying that even you're not aware of why this decampment happened when it happened? The Oppenheimer Park one that we saw this month.
I'm not. The bylaw exists that allows park rangers to ask people to take down their tents during the day so that parks can be used by a whole range of park users. But the timing of this decampment in the midst of a horrible cold snap was rightly infuriating to so many people, myself included.
I know the mayor and I have gone back and forth on this. We've had the Thais, Jen St. Dennis talking about the Hastings Street decampment, and there seems to be this conflict about whether or not there was enough shelter space for these displaced folks to go to, or at least to sleep at night. In the case of Oppenheimer Park, from your understanding, was there enough shelter space?
Mixed reviews is what I hear. I've been asking for the numbers. We know a number of the warming centers were at capacity during this cold snap. We had additional shelter beds opening, but a number of them were full. And it also becomes a challenge of where people can get to and what fits their needs, whether they have a pet or they have some belongings they need to bring with them. The long-term solution needs to have a lot more options that meet people's specific needs and allow them to get back on their feet. And that's what we're severely lacking.
And I think the reason this is important is people die in these extreme weather events.
Yeah, it's absolutely a question of life or death, particularly in the weather that we have been seeing. And we can't keep this cycle up and expect something to change. We have to put those solutions on the table. We need to create that housing. We need options for people to move into.
So let's talk solutions. I know you're not in the majority in Vancouver City Council, but if you had your way, what are the solutions that Vancouver City Council needs to work towards to make sure that this cycle stops?
First of all, we need to stop making it worse. And so last July, I brought a motion forward to council asking that we renew leases on temporary modular housing so that we don't see more people lose their housing and move into homelessness. It seemed like a bare minimum that we could do as a council, totally in our jurisdiction. Yeah, let's keep the housing that we have while we work to build more housing. Mayor Simon and the ABC majority voted it down, which I truly cannot explain to you. I was shocked by that. They will say they want permanent housing, not temporary housing, but that permanent housing isn't immediate. And in the meantime, we need people on the street. Yeah, we need to keep the housing we have so that new housing adds to the units and we're not just shuffling people around. So that's one. I also have spent years fighting to make it faster and easier to build non-market housing, including social and supportive housing. And there's so many examples that come up in the public realm where you hear on the North Shore or in Vancouver, days and days, weeks of public hearings for badly needed affordable housing. It's a broken system, and we at the local government level can help fix it in pre-approving that housing or dramatically speeding it up, which brings those homes online faster. It also saves a lot of money that can go into deepening affordability in that housing. And so I have twice brought forward that motion to City Hall. It failed on the last council. It got passed but slowed down on this council. And it clearly isn't a priority for ABC because we haven't seen any tangible action yet.
Well, Mayor Sim does say that he's a process guy. He's a black belt in lean. So hopefully he reconsiders. Christine, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, representing OneCity Vancouver, she is Vancouver City Councillor Christine Boyle. Thank you to Shelter Point Single Malt Whiskey for supporting local conversations. Now, did you know that BC has a morbid history of human feet in shoes just washing up on beaches? Why does this keep happening? We'll talk about it up next.